Hello and welcome to the 185th edition of the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. In Nashville, Tennessee, I'm the professor, Matt Perkins. And a flag route across the Harpeth River from me here in the Music City, it's our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton.
I guess I'm more influenced by Steve Spurrier than I thought because the flag route is actually one of my favorite concepts that I call on Friday nights, where you have the old smasheroo, and that's a Steve Spurrier special where you have a wide hitch and a corner route. That combo is called flag. I love it. I'm excited to be on the show. Lots of awards to hand out. I'm glad to get all these boxes of trophies to be exited from my room. I can give them out to some people. So if you're listening, stay tuned. We have a lot of good stuff for you.
A lot of hardware to hand out, but we can't do that without the third amigo in the second city. A man who gets his kicks on Route 66. It's our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook.
It's good to be here, and I wish Coach wasn't around because, Coach, I don't know if you listened to last week's show, but I predicted every game correctly without you here, so I think that's a first for me.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. Well, I'll see y'all later.
Well, Coach, don't go too far because we're going to start the show by talking about some coaching changes. And we teased it in the last show, but we wanted to save it for you, Coach. Your former defensive coordinator has headed off to the Rocky Mountain State. Mel Tucker is now the head coach for the Colorado Buffaloes. How do you feel about this hire, Coach?
Well, for our defense, I hate it because we're losing such a great defensive coordinator. But, of course, I don't blame him for going. I think Colorado hit an absolute home run here. I think he'll be great for that program. The influences he has, the contacts he has, the resources he's privy to, and the experiences that he's had throughout his career between the NFL and various stops in the college game as well. I mean, you can't get a more diverse candidate as far as his knowledge goes and experiences. So Mel Tucker, I think, is just one of those guys that, he has a personality to light up the room. He's a hard worker. He's someone that can really jump in there and quickly get them back on track.
Yeah, Josh, Mel Tucker is a former Badger, but this is his first time as a head coach anywhere. So do you have any reservations about that?
Going to be a first-time head coach somewhere.
For a Power 5 job being your first head coaching,
I know.
Talk about that with Ryan Day.
Yeah, that's always tricky. So that's why you got to have at least a little bit of reservation. You don't necessarily want to dive head first like Coach did with saying it was a home run hire. But for where Colorado kind of was, it's certainly an intriguing hire, and it's one that I think in a few years we'll say, man, that really paid dividends. But, yeah, it will be interesting to see how it works out. I totally ditto what Coach said about the enthusiasm and energy he brings to the job.
Definitely. And I think that Colorado did a smart thing in going for a guy with a defensive background because we saw what happened to Colorado once Jim Leavitt left. Just as defensive coordinator, but that defense fell off quickly. And if they're going to compete in the Pac-12, I mean, they need to be physical.
Yeah, which is interesting. You mentioned that the defense fell off considering the job Mike McIntyre just got.
Yeah, to say the least. Well,
desperation move.
Ole Miss. I mean,
desperation move.
I could probably be the DC at Ole Miss, just so you know. Ole Miss, if you're listening, come on, holler at your boy.
Well, Coach, just down the road from your alma mater in Atlanta, Georgia Tech hired former Temple head coach Jeff Collins. He spent only 2 years as a head coach of Temple after he took over when Matt Rhule left for Baylor. He comes in with a 15-10 career record, but he decided that he needed to start driving Ramblin' Wreck. So do you think this was a good hire for the Yellow Jackets?
I think it was for old Geoff. He packed his capri pants. He's ready to go. He can actually wear them in Atlanta now because it's a little bit warmer.
He's actually from Atlanta originally too, which
him and Kirby are buddies. Him and Kirby Smart are buddies. So I think that'll be a great hire for Georgia Tech. I think he's somebody that can recruit. He recruited at Temple, which is pretty difficult to do because if I'm not mistaken, Temple's probably in one of the worst neighborhoods in Philadelphia. You Northeastern guys can correct me on that if you wish. But
I think Josh is offended you just called him a Northeasterner.
And also, it totally ruins my opportunity for a joke, which was, I'm pretty sure you're describing all of Philadelphia's neighborhoods.
Oh, there you go. Maybe Aunt Sally will send you an emphatic text message telling you all about the geographic location of Temple University within the city limits of Philadelphia. But no, I think it's a great hire. I think he's going to bring a lot of energy to the program, a much-needed boost of energy for the Yellow Jackets. Again, I mentioned recruiting. He'll kill it there. It's going to, unfortunately for him, it's going to take a year or two because, A, you're going to have to get a quarterback. You're going to have to get a few of them at least. You're going to have to rebuild your offensive line. That's not an easy task. And then, I think, playmakers on the perimeter, no matter how you slice them or dice them. So that won't be as difficult. But the guys up front will be pretty difficult, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and then finding that quarterback. And you're going to have to rely on a freshman, guaranteed. So it's going to be a tough year. 2019 will be for the Yellow Jackets. But if you're a Yellow Jacket fan, you have to understand the transition from Paul Johnson to anybody that's not triple option is going to take some time. And Jeff Collins, I think, is a perfect fit for this. He's from the area. He's got resources down here. He
spent a lot of time at the University of Florida as their OC, and he did a lot of good recruiting down there as well. So we know he's got ties to the Southeast, yeah. Josh. How long do you think this transition is going to take, completely overhauling the offensive system?
It's going to take at least a year. I wouldn't be surprised if it takes 2, to be quite honest, because and that's an optimistic thing, and that's because I'm looking at the blocking schemes up front. The offensive linemen at Georgia Tech, at Army, at Navy, they're going to be smaller, athletic guys designed to take you down at the knees. And what a more conventional offense is going to be looking at is big hog mollies to pass protect, create running lanes, things like that. But I do think this is a really good hire. I know his overall record at Temple, you can kind of say, 15-10.
He had 2 winning seasons at Temple, which you can't say for a lot of people.
No, but the thing that I really liked about it too is you sort of saw the growth of his teams each year. His debut season, 2017, they won 4 of their last 5 games. Mm-hmm. And then this year, they started out 2-3, and then they won 6 of their last 7. So this is a guy who can adjust on the fly, reinvents his team. We saw Temple mix things up with their quarterback this year. That's when they got hot. And I think that's the mark of a really, really good ball coach, because if you don't have plans A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you're not going to really have as much success. Any coach can come up with a good plan A. What are you doing when plan A doesn't work? And I think Jeff Collins is proving that he's moving towards that direction of being a well-rounded coach who can adjust on the fly in games and adjust within seasons, and that's pretty impressive.
Definitely. All right. Well, Josh, I know you're going to be very pumped about this next hire, and that is Kansas State, replacing a legend with a guy who all he does is win. That is Chris Klieman coming over. No, I don't know how well DJ Khaled goes over in the Little Apple. But Chris Klieman from North Dakota State, owner of a 67-6 career record, 3 national titles, probably going to get his 4th this year. We'll talk about the FCS playoffs here in a few minutes. But, Josh, I have a feeling that you're going to consider this one of the best hires of the entire coaching carousel.
I am. I think if Klieman had been at North Dakota State just like 2 years, he's just piggybacking off of what Craig Brohl set up. But in many ways, Klieman took this program that next leap. He kept it going. won a boatload of games, like you said. He's won 3 national titles already in his career there. But for me, what makes it such a home run hire is FCS has those recruiting restrictions. They're playing with fewer athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he kept it going and knocked off his fair share of Power 5 programs.
So much so that that Power 5 teams won't even schedule them anymore.
Yeah. Even within the FCS, I know it's one thing to have a dominant program, but you're still recruiting to Fargo, North Dakota. And there's some really, really good programs in the Southeast where there's nicer weather. There's some really good programs in Texas where there's a hotbed of recruiting. There are big city programs. Villanova has a nice football program right in the middle of Philadelphia. North Dakota still has a little bit harder recruiting to get to. Hyman's overcome all of that. He's kept this dynasty going. He's kept the ball rolling. And at Kansas State, well, they're going to have some similar recruiting issues that North Dakota State would have. So this is a wonderful, wonderful hire. And then obviously, I got to mention, I mean, dudes from Waterloo, Iowa played at Northern Iowa. I mean, come on, you got to root for a local kid. Let's go.
Coach, you have any thoughts here on this one?
Yeah, I saw I saw actually some Twitter backlash about this guy. Excuse me, and I was very, very confused with that because this guy's a winner. I get it. He's been in FCS, and you're wondering, you go from FCS to Power 5. Can he make that jump? No, this guy's a winner. Okay, Kansas State fans, those of you that are complaining, shut up. Okay, this guy's going to win football games. This guy knows how to recruit in an area like Manhattan, Kansas. You know why? Because he's recruited kids to Fargo, North Dakota. He wins. He will find a way. I guarantee you that. And I don't understand the backlash with this hire. Some people I don't know what they expected. You're Kansas State. You're not Alabama.
And as Josh said before, this program was nothing. This program was less than nothing before Bill Snyder got there.
Exactly.
Given that was in the middle of the 18th century, but still.
Yeah, I mean, back when football was invented, of course, everybody was nothing except Alabama. But I think they reeled off like 5 straight national titles before football was even invented. So, Bill Snyder made you somewhat of a name. I mean, as much of a name as you could be coming from literally just a school that happened to play football. And now you're whining because the most successful FCS coach in the history of FCS wants to come. You can fact check me on that, I guess. But one of the most successful coaches in FCS wants to come to your program. You're going to complain about that? And he recruits the same area? You don't believe this guy's going to find a way to recruit into Oklahoma and Texas and Missouri, Colorado, Michigan, Ohio? You don't think this guy's going to figure out how to go beyond the borders of Kansas and supplement the JUCO guys? Come on, get real. This guy, I love this hire. I think this is a home run too. I think a lot of these schools are finally getting it right.
And I think the thing about this hire that is going to be good for Kansas State is that Kansas State within the Big 12 is anachronistic. They are still a mauling, run the ball first, second, and only throw it if you absolutely have to. Well, that North Dakota State offense is the exact same. They play great defense. They always have very strong bruising linemen, tailbacks, and they've had a couple decent quarterbacks up there too. Carson Wentz, Easton Stick, both those kids can ball. And I think that they are going to be good fast there at Kansas State because they've already got, the type of players, like Josh said, that he likes to play with, that he can scheme for. So it's just going to be, him adding on, the right guys, filling out the rest of that staff and picking up a couple of guys, probably some JUCOs here in the first, second years. But I feel like he could continue the Bill Snyder tradition at Kansas State very, very well.
And Snyder lately has recruited a lot of JUCO kids too. So
yeah, he definitely
they've got some experience, some guys that have played some college football, whether it be at the JUCO level or for Kansas State. So it's not like he's scraping the bottom of the barrel here.
So let's head over to Charlotte, who made an interesting hire, shall we say. They decided to go for Will Healy. And if that is not a name that you recognize, well, I can't blame you, because even I did not recognize it the first time it was announced. Will Healy, for those of you unaware, had been the head coach at Austin Peay here in Central Tennessee for the last couple of years.
Let's Go P. That's the name of their official athletics website. Let's Go P. Just let that sink in.
He has a career 13-21 record, going 10-14 in conference. Losing record this past season, 2017 though. They finished 7-1 in the OVC, the best record in the history of the program. But coach, I mean, this seems like a big drop off from where they were originally going to be going.
Yeah, I can't say that, I understand. I get Kansas State going and hiring who they hired, but I don't know. Like, I feel like he's still really young. I mean, yeah, he's got a lot of energy. He did a lot of good things at Austin Peay, but I just don't know that he was ready quite yet to make the jump to FBS. I don't know that he understands fully what he's getting into. Luckily, I guess there's always got to be a learning curve somehow. I mean, I guess you can't just. I guess there's got to be a first time to jump into FCS at some point. So, I will say that there's a lot of potential here. I thought Charlotte could have done better than Will Healy, even though I think a lot of Will Healy, but I think they could have done a little bit better, getting someone that's at least had some FBS experience as far as coordinator or something. Maybe somebody with a little more ties to North Carolina. So many hires, make sense there. I just don't think that Will Healy was tops on their list, or I have a hard time believing that. But will he do well there? Maybe. In time, I think he'll have a rough first season, and it's going to be maybe he's the guy that just comes in for 2-3 years, recruits his tail off, and brings energy to the program and sets it up for the next guy. That could very well be the case there too. So, to be honest, I don't know what to make of that, because he's just such an unknown commodity. We don't know.
Yeah, Josh, are you as shocked as I was when you saw this?
I was, but the more I've learned about Will Healy and what I've looked at for Austin Peay, I think there's a sliver of, okay, I could see why Charlotte would go this route. Austin Peay won one game in 4 years, and he was part of that. They went 0-11 in 2016, his first year there. This is a program that is 283, 535, and 16. That's a 349 win percentage. And he got them to that 8-4 record a year ago. And then they didn't fully back it up, but they still had a competitive season this year. And those 13 wins, by the way, that makes up 4.5% of all Austin Peay's wins. And his career 382 win percentage, that's way above their program history. So he did some nice things at what is on a short list of being one of the worst programs in college football. So from Charlotte's perspective, you can see, okay, we're getting a young guy. He's going to be enthusiastic. He's had a terrible, terrible program that he has turned around a tad. Maybe he can work some of that magic here at Charlotte. But, Charlotte was kind of between a rock and a hard place. They had the guy they wanted, offered him, and he was sort of like, well, that's nice, but I'll see what else comes along. Maybe someone else will give me their number at the bar tonight. And Charlotte was like, nah. We offered you something, you don't want it, we'll rescind it. And then for Charlotte, their pool of coaches is going to be a little bit smaller since they're such a new program and such a small program.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if Will Healy was a questionable new hire, there's an even more questionable rehire taking place out in the Beehive State. Gary Anderson is headed back to Utah State to take over for his former offensive coordinator, Matt Wells, who left for the Wildlife in Lubbock, Texas. Gary has had an interesting career. Obviously, he was formerly the head coach at Utah State, parlayed that job into the head gig at Wisconsin, left there after 2 years to go to Oregon State, in which that team took a very fast downward spiral. Spent the last year as an assistant head coach at Utah. But, Josh, I'm really questioning this retread hire here. I do not think you can go home again in this case.
It has the potential to be a program killer. And it's because Gary Anderson is not a good coach. He's proven he's not a good coach. He struggled with things at Oregon State, to put it nicely. And people that look back on his Utah State tenure, well, it was only 4 seasons. In his first 2 years, he went 8-16. They made it to a bowl game in 2011 that probably saved his job. And then they had a breakthrough season in 2012. But this isn't like, going back to Bill Snyder, Like, it's not what Kansas State did when they brought back a living legend. He was an okay coach for them 6 years ago. Lots has changed in both Utah State and Gary Anderson. This is dumbfounding, and personally, I think it's just going to totally backfire. And Utah State, we're going to be talking about it as one of the worst jobs in America in about 3 years.
Coach, over under 2.5 seasons for Gary Anderson back at Utah State.
I mean, I'm gonna take a push here.
How are you? Oh, so he's gonna get fired midway through his 3rd season?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be such a dumpster fire. I'm gonna take the push just because of.
I don't know. The fact that you are pushing on a half is very impressive, by the way.
Yeah, I think this is a terrible idea. I think this is a terrible, terrible, terrible idea.
Well, I would have said this was the worst coaching hire, except we have to get to.
I just want to counter one thing that there's a really good coach right in that state also. If they had wanted to go what the previous 2 schools was, which was the FCS route, Jay Hill has done really good things at Weber State. They're 20-5 the last 2 seasons. I don't know why you don't give him a call. Maybe they did, and maybe he turned them down. Who knows? But I think Utah State looked at Gary Anderson. That was their only candidate. It was a list of 1. And that's
there can't be. Why Utah State? Why? Come on. You struck your gold with them. And then he failed twice. Let it be. Let it go. Hire somebody else. There's plenty of good Power 5 coordinators that need jobs.
There really are. And this would have been the most befuddling hire of the silly season, except Liberty has decided to hire Hugh Freeze. Oh, Hugh Freeze.
Freeze us.
Liberty, which prides themselves on being a devoutly Christian school, Josh. I mean, I'm trying to swim through the irony here, but it's just too thick.
Well, look, their athletic director is the guy who oversaw Baylor athletics during one of the worst scandals in recent memory. Now they're hiring Hugh Freeze, who I believe got fired for calling prostitutes.
Whoa. Texting prostitutes.
Okay, fair enough.
From his university phone.
Yeah. Between their head coach, between their athletic director, it's total BS for them to say they're a Christian school, blah, 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 blah. But here's the other thing. NCAA loves to slap penalties on the little schools. That's just what they do. It makes it look like they're enforcing stuff. Jerry Tarkanian, the great UNLV coach, had a great line about, I'm probably going to mix the schools up, but it was something along the lines of, North Carolina's cheating so bad, they put Texas Tech golf on probation. So essentially, Liberty's just inviting NCAA to step around. As soon as they step out of line at all, NCAA is going to drop the hammer on this program, and I'm going to laugh my ass off.
I think we all are. Coach. I mean, Hugh Freeze, as far as the X's and O's go, he's maybe a little bit better than average, but I do not see the upside in this coaching hire. He
is about as phony as you can get. I mean, all this, you heard me say Freezus, right?
Mm-hmm.
He just reminds me of the stereotype of a used car salesman. He just comes off to me as phony. I don't know what it is about him, but he just, maybe it's because he preaches all this stuff, and then knowing what he got in trouble for is troubling to me. I understand like having remorse for what you did and learning from it, but I mean to go like he's gone full Tebow with it. I mean Tebow's genuine about it. I'm not poking fun at Tebow, but Tebow is. That's who he is, but, he can be overboard with that. But, he was getting paid to go speak at churches.
Yeah.
He was getting paid a pretty penny too. I mean, it was a big chunk of money. Now, I just think it's, a school of Liberty stature for, what they're kind of known for and what they're taking heat for. They're getting a guy that they're just doubling down, in my opinion. From a purely football standpoint, I think it's probably a pretty good hire. He was actually football wise. If you take out all the all the dirty stuff or all the shady stuff that he did with that recruiting class where he had I think he had the number one class.
Yeah, AJ Brown, Shea Patterson, Greg Little. Yeah, all a bunch of 5-star kids, and he was able to get the Kimdiche brothers, those guys.
Laramie Tunsil last minute, whole gas mask incident there. I mean, just a ton of stuff happened under his watch, and that's got to scare the crap out of you. But
apparently it doesn't. But and the other thing is that football programs don't operate in a vacuum.
They don't. And from a purely football standpoint, I mean, I think it's a good hire personally. I think he did on the field. I think he was about the only one that could cause Nick Saban to lose sleep at night for a while there. And, I think he has a lot of knowledge. I think he knows what he's doing. I don't think it's a bad hire from that perspective. But, I mean, PR-wise, I guess let's just see it play out. Maybe, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Maybe he's in a different situation at Liberty, and maybe he doesn't have to resort to all that. Maybe he could just recruit his guys and compete and do what he does. So we'll see what happens. Maybe he learned from his mistakes at Ole Miss and falling into the trap of getting influenced by boosters and, trying to do all the smutty, grimy, dirty stuff in recruiting.
Smutty being the operative word there.
Exactly. Maybe he thought that was it was a key word in that, but maybe he thought that was what he had to do. The pressure of Ole Miss, thinking that they're Alabama, and really they're closer to Kansas State than they are Alabama as far as prestige. Sorry, Ole Miss fans. It's the truth.
Archie Manning ain't walking through that door.
Nope.
Yeah. So, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, and if you want to, if Ole Miss fans, I'm a Georgia guy. If you want to, play that game, sure. We haven't won a national championship in 40 years. We beat our chest, but we've had a little bit more success.
I was just going to say I had to look it up. This was the quote. NCAA was so mad at Kentucky they gave Cleveland State 2 more years of probation.
And there you have it. Park the shark.
Yeah.
A couple of little nuggets that I thought were interesting. Mark Hudspeth, if you guys don't remember who that is, he was a former Raging Cajun head coach as of 2017 when he was asked to part ways with the university for NCAA violations that made them vacate, I think, 3 years worth of games for violations of paying players and academic fraud. Austin Peay thought it'd be a good idea to hire him. He was just recently hired on to be defensive coordinator at Mississippi State. So, so that's your next head coach at Austin Peay. Austin Peay's official website is Let's Go Peay. So let that sink in for a minute. Let'sGoPeay.com is the official athletics website of Austin Peay. I think that's pretty funny.
He's getting some run in this show.
Matt Brown making a splash hire as offensive coordinator, stealing Phil Longo away from Ole Miss, former Sam Houston State head coach that was winning national championships at the FCS level. He's now the offensive coordinator at UNC. So I'm liking that team better and better. I'm starting to like that hire better and better with Matt Brown because it feels like he's getting it. He's got it. He's hired an all-star staff, it seems like. So very interesting there. Steve Addazio just got extended 2 more years at Boston College. Thought that was interesting. And I think that was warranted considering the season they had. Yeah, no, I think it is. I think he's starting to prove that he can. I know we banged on him earlier, in previous years, but I think he's starting to do well. So,
all right. Yeah. Well, let's now get to the FCS playoffs, which happened this past weekend.
Playoffs.
I'm just trying to win a game.
We can do diddly poo.
Well, as expected, North Dakota State rolled against Colgate 35-0. I think Colgate gave up more points in this game than they had the rest of the season combined, pretty much. Mm-hmm. They are going to meet South Dakota State on Friday night. They beat Kennesaw State 27-17 in what was a fantastic game over the weekend. Other side of the bracket, Maine upset Weber State 23-18 as predicted here by both Josh and myself. And finally, Eastern Washington took down UC Davis on the Crimson Turf out there in Eastern Washington, 34-29. Josh, and for our listeners, on our last show, Josh, you picked all these games correctly, so kudos to you. So I guess I will start with this. Was there any one game from this past weekend that really stood out to you?
I mean, they all stood out to me. They were really exciting, especially that Maine game. So I think that's the one I'm going to go with. Stood out for me. Maine had a rough day. Their quarterback, Mr. Ferguson, after looking so good in the previous round, he really struggled with that Weber State defense, and it was slop fest. But Maine has a really good defense, and they call it the Black Hole, which I love because they're the Maine Black Bears. And that Black Hole defense was playing out of their mind. They had 4 interceptions by 4 different players. It was a total team effort. They were getting just – their pass rush was amazing to steal something from the FBS, to kind of give it an analogy. I feel like I was watching Clemson's defensive line. That's how good Maine was playing against Weber State. And I think if Maine can have that level of pass rush and that level of back-end coverage with multiple picks, 3 of them were from the secondary. 1 came on a tipped pass that either a lineman or a linebacker got. But if they could have that back-end coverage when the pass rush forces throws under duress, that's going to bode well. But as Eastern Washington showed, you got to score some points. And Maine's offense, especially Mr. Ferguson, he's got to get back on track, I think, to pull a second straight upset.
Yeah, Coach, your Kennesaw State squad lost against South Dakota State this weekend in a bit of, I wouldn't say quite a heartbreaker for them. They made a valiant effort to come back there in the fourth quarter, scoring 14 in the final frame, but couldn't quite pull it out. The Jackrabbits got out to a nice 17-3 lead at halftime and held on. So was there anything from this one that makes you think that South Dakota State could take down the 800-pound gorilla that is the Bison?
I mean, they have a puncher's chance. I mean, anytime you get out to a lead like they did on Kennesaw State, Kennesaw State has a really good defense. They play, and the conditions were favoring the Owls in the driving range. So, you take a couple of those factors in there, and South Dakota State really impressed me in the first half of that game. Kennesaw State made the run that I thought they were going to make. It wasn't quite enough. That crucial score with about, a touch over 2 minutes to go in the game to put it just out of reach for South Dakota State was huge. What makes it interesting is that they're resilient. They can take your best punch and keep rolling. So if North Dakota State is off just a little bit, if they keep reading all the headlines, this is going to be the easiest national championship. They rolled over Colgate. They put on a clinic. You saw that flustered look from the Colgate head coach. They made him, I think they made him want to quit the entire coaching profession on that day. So they might be smelling themselves a little bit, maybe. Who knows? They've got the now distraction of their head coach going to Kansas State. So there's a lot of factors that are brewing for an upset, even though I don't think it's really going to happen because they just are that strong. North Dakota State can overcome a lot of those distractions, but if they're not careful, South Dakota State can get them. And I think South Dakota State will make it a game early on, but I just don't think it's going to hold up, truthfully.
Yeah, Josh, I mean, South Dakota State gave North Dakota State their best game during the regular season. So we get to see, another classic Missouri Valley matchup here. So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Coach. What is the Jackrabbits' chance in this one?
Well, they're going to have to do their last game plan, but even do more. So the game we're talking about is a 21-17 final. South Dakota State actually had the lead going into the fourth quarter. They made North Dakota State earn everything. Easton Stick didn't have a particularly good day. 9 of 20 for 182 yards, 2 scores, and an interception. Jackrabbit offense was really clicking. They could only muster 17 points, and part of that has to do with they had their own turnover, so it was even on that mark. But South Dakota State awful on third down way back in that game, going just 3 of 12. The other thing that gives you pause is we've seen this play out before. Just a few years ago, 2016, Jackrabbits win at the Fargo Dome 19-17. Well, in the rematch in the playoffs, they lose 36-10. But the Jackrabbits are a quality team. I said in the previous show that if it wasn't for this dynasty, the Jackrabbits would probably have several Missouri Valley Football Conference titles, and they might even have a national title or two. They've been a really consistent program. It's going to be dangerous. If Easton Stick is off again, like he was in that previous matchup way back early in the season, that gives the Jackrabbits a chance. And if the Jackrabbits run the ball as well as they did in that previous matchup, they averaged almost 6 yards a carry. If they could do that against North Dakota State, if they can force the Bison to bring an extra man in the box, that should open up the passing attack, which also had success. They just got to get more than 17 points. They got to fix that third down percentage, and they got to not have any field goals.
All right. So, Josh, who have you got in the national title game then?
Well, I'm going to go with the team that I picked way back when. I'm going to stick with the Bison. I know it's the easy pick. I know it's the safe pick, but they're playing at home. They are the best team in the FCS, so it is the smart pick. As for Eastern Washington, Maine, I'm going to roll the dice and say defense wins championships. Maine's defense is among the best I've seen. I know Colgate's defense just got shredded, but Maine's defense is every bit as good as Colgate's, but playing in a much tougher conference. I am going to say they keep the magic going somehow out in the Inferno, and we get North Dakota State, Maine. How about that?
Coach, how about you?
I'm going to go with both home teams. You know, the Bison with that Z is they're the odds-on favorite. Obviously, they're the best team. Just watching them play, they're just a well-oiled machine. They're going to get through the distractions. They're going to win a tighter ball game against South Dakota State than they'll be a little bit more challenged than they were against Colgate, but they'll come out victorious. And I think Eastern Washington will overcome that tough Bear defense when they bring them to the crimson carpet. And I think the Red Turf Warriors win. That would be Eastern Washington. And I will say that between Boise and Eastern Washington, I think it's way harder to watch an Eastern Washington game. I had trouble watching that game because of the turf.
It is hard on the eyes. That is,
it really is. I mean, I thought the blue turf was hard on the eyes, but that red, holy cow, it's brutal.
Yeah.
And that's got to take a toll on opponents. So, I mean, something psychologically about that just has to take a toll. And maybe it takes a toll on Maine. Maybe the cross country trip takes a toll on. I mean, that's a trip and a half right there. You go from wherever the heck you're at in Maine to Cheney, Washington.
Orono. Come on now.
Orono. Are you Northeastern people?
Well, I hope so. Maine's band wasn't planning to make the trip, and then an anonymous donor gave them the money, and at about 5 a.m. on game day, they flew out to Ogden, Utah, played, and then after the game, they were flying on back. Because that donor did not include a hotel for the band or something. I don't know who made that travel arrangement. Maybe it's finals week and the Maine kids need to get back. I don't know what it is. But I hope that Black Bear band gets to make the trip again.
Josh, also, I'm assuming that the anonymous donor was Maine native Stephen King.
Oh, that would be amazing. Another tidbit I learned from watching the Maine game against good old Weber State. It was a fun game. I watched it beginning to end. But here was something else I learned. Maine's mascot, great name. It's Bananas the Bear, Bananas T-Bear. And the way it got its name is back in like the 20s, some random wealthy dude in Maine that had a private animal collection had a bear cub that he lent to the university to be the mascot. And he said, I hope this bear makes the fans go bananas. That's how it got its name.
Oh, so you're saying it's not because there's some big Woody Allen fans there?
No, I love it. I think that's amazing.
I mean, it is pretty great. It is pretty great. All right. Well, Josh, I'm with you. I'm going with North Dakota State and Maine. That's the final I picked when we previewed the bracket when it first came out, and that's what I am sticking with. The one other game we had this weekend was the classic rivalry, Army-Navy. This time went down in the city of Philadelphia, which we may have managed to mention at least a half dozen times so far, only half an hour into this show. Army got out to a 10-0 lead, managed to hang on to win 17-10. A game that went pretty much as we expected, except the teams combined for 142 passing yards, which is about 141 more than I anticipated. Josh, with this victory, Army goes to 10-2 on the season. How impressed are you with this Black Knight squad?
I mean, I've had them ranked the majority of the season. We saw what they did against Oklahoma. They have a stout defense. They are running the option. I might say that they're running the option the best in the entire country. 9-win Georgia.
That's at the FBS level for sure.
Yeah. 9-win Georgia Southern might give them a run for their money, but I think of the option exclusive teams, not talking about RPO like some of the other teams. I'm talking strictly the traditional triple option. I think Army might be running it the best. But, Matt, you mentioned the passing yards. I think that's where this game was lost. And I'm just not sure why former quarterback turned wide receiver for Navy, Zach Abey, why is he throwing it 5 times completed none of them, and 2 of his passes were picked off. That's where I was lost.
That just reeks of desperation to me.
Yeah, and I know we're not doing a traditional questionable coaching because we didn't have a full week of games, but
why not? Let's get it in there.
Man, what's up with that?
Coach, do you know what's up with that? Because I sure don't.
Shoot, I don't. I wish I could. I mean, yeah, you know, we talk about how often, like we took an over-under on one pass that Army was going to throw in a game that we previewed in a quick slant one time. And I don't understand why they felt the need to really spread it out. And, I don't know. And I just said Army. I realize that, but
it's okay. I'm surprised that Army threw it 9 times.
I'm surprised Army threw it more than 3 times, and I'm surprised Navy throws it a little bit more. They got a little bit more Paul Johnson in them than Army does, and Paul Johnson likes to take his shots every once in a while, more than any other of his disciples for sure, except for maybe Brian Bohannon. But it baffled me, like, why they just kept going to the same well, and Zach Abey was just struggling. He just kept throwing picks. Army couldn't capitalize. I mean, as many picks as Zach Abey threw and as off as he was, that game should have been way more lopsided than it was. But, I mean, I don't know how you continue down that same path. You got to figure something out. I mean, you go against that option all the time. You know what defense you're going to get, and Army knows what they're going to do. And I mean, they just know each other. The familiarity is just there. So, I mean, why not, do what makes you Navy? But I guess that's why Navy was third in the Commander-in-Chief trophy standings this year, because they're just not as good as they have been. So. Who knows? There could be a million different answers to that question. I just don't know.
All right. Well, gents, with that, it is time for us to get to our pop quiz. It is awards season here. The secondary awards were all given out last week with the Heisman Trophy, etc., Maxwell Award, all those good things, as were All-American teams came out. Now, Josh, you know what the definition of a consensus All-American is?
Yeah, it's one where the 3 of us agree that they should be an All-American.
Well, there's that, but do you know what the textbook definition of a consensus All-American?
It has to do with all the services. Like, it must be Walter Camp and then maybe AP or something.
Okay, well, the definition of a consensus All-American is that it's a player who is chosen as an All-American by 3 of the 5 governing bodies that choose All-Americans. That's the AP, the AFCA, the FWAA, the Sporting News, and the WCFF. This season...
And the Legal Motion podcast too, right?
Well, we're getting there.
Cool.
This season, we had a handful of consensus All-Americans. Those included such standouts as Clyde Farrell, the outstanding defensive lineman from Clemson, Julian Love, the safety from Notre Dame, Josh Allen, the edge rusher from Kentucky, Micah Hyatt, the tackle from Clemson, and so on. But in the history of college football, there are 23 teams that have had at least 30 consensus All-Americans. Your job, gentlemen, is to name those 30 teams. Coach, I'm going to start with you.
Well, you can't talk about consensus All-Americans without talking about Alabama, who I think they're competing with the New York Yankees for championships now. I think the Yankees are at 27 and Alabama's at like 26.5. So I'm going to go with Alabama.
Alabama has the 6th most consensus All-Americans with 69. Josh.
Well, age of program combined with successive program combined with they are the Golden Boy program, touchdown Jesus, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, number 1, the only team with more than 100. They have 101 consensus All-Americans. Nice. Well done, Coach.
Well done. Well freaking done. Okay, I'm gonna go with another traditional power, and their pregame tradition is they roll some little stupid wagon out on their field. So Boomer Sooner.
Oklahoma, number 5. They have 80 consensus All-Americans.
All right. Well, age of program combined with level of success combined with being a Golden Boy program, Michigan.
Michigan, number 3. They've had 82 of them.
Thought you were going to say Oscar De La Hoya. Keep saying Golden Boy. I'm going to go with, speaking of golden, it's the color of corn. And there's got to be somebody that husked the corn. So there would be the Nebraska Corn Huskers. They're All-Americans at doing that.
They are 8th all-time with 54 consensus All-Americans. Josh.
Well, the age of the program combined with the level of success they've had combined with being a Golden Boy program, Ohio State.
Number 2, they have 85. 16 less than number 1, Notre Dame. By the way, in your first 6 guesses, you guys have named the top 6, so well done.
Well, heck yeah. I gotta say my Dogs.
The Dogs come in at a tie for 18th with 32 consensus All-Americans.
Most of them recently.
So we've already had the Ohio State of Big 12 with Oklahoma. Have we had the Ohio State of the Pac-12 with USC?
We have not.
So I'll go with
USC has had 81 consensus All-Americans. Well done, Josh.
Well, speaking of we have the Michigan of the Big Ten. They are in the Big Ten. We have so the Michigan of the ACC, or they could be considered the Ohio State of the ACC. I just gave it away. Florida State. How about that?
Florida State. They have 45. They are 10th all-time.
I got lost in my analogy.
It's okay. It happens to the best of us.
All right. So this program, I believe, had 0 consensus All-Americans from the day it was born until Howard Sellenberger got there. And then they've had a whole bunch. So I'll go with Miami.
Miami's had 35.
I think they had 30 in 2001.
Coach.
Oh, it's my turn again. All right, Florida.
Flo Rida, tied with your Dogs with 32 All-Americans, consensus All-Americans.
That's a lowercase f, though. Lowercase.
Nice.
Get that right.
All right. Well, to mix our metaphors, we've had the Ohio State of the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the Big 10, and the ACC, and the SEC. So how about the Michigan, the second fiddle team, the always close but no cigar team? I don't believe we've gotten the Michigan of the Big 12, which, of course, is UT Austin.
That is correct. They've had 60 consensus All-Americans, good for 7th all-time.
Well, they're the real UT, so the other UT, Tennessee.
Yep, they've had 40. Josh.
Nice. All right. Well, whenever we have these, there's a historic program that we tend to overlook, but I've been committed to never overlook them, and that is the glorious decades of 1970s, 1980s Pittsburgh football.
Well done, sir. They're actually 9th all-time. They've had 51 consensus All-Americans.
And 45 of them are from the 1970s and the 1980s.
And they're all named Tony Dorsett.
Or Dan Marino. Or Mike Ditka.
He played the 70s?
He played every decade for Pitt. The ghost of Ditka just plays on. I'm going to say Penn State.
Penn State, 11th all-time with 42 All-Americans consensus.
Nice. Well, I'm a little surprised Coach hasn't said this one, so I feel bad poaching an SEC program. But they might be the Michigan of the SEC. How about Louisiana State Bayou Bengal University?
They are the 3rd team tied with 32 consensus All-Americans. That is correct. The Bayou Bengals tied for 18th with Georgia and Florida.
All right. Well done.
Coach. You guys both have 8 and have 0 strikes. So there are 7 teams left to choose from.
All right. Well, I know it's not Rutgers. Okay, so we're going to go process of elimination here. Did we say we didn't say Clemson?
Rutgers, by the way, has had 4 consensus All-American.
Hey,
That's 4 more than I would have guessed.
Ray Rice is definitely one of them.
Maybe.
Clemson.
Clemson, coach. Sorry, they've only had 25 consensus All-Americans.
Well,
Oh, that is your first strike, Josh.
That's an opening for me. Okay. Well,
come on, Buster Douglas. Knock me out.
I am going to pull from the history books, being a history teacher, and they had a lot of consensus All-Americans in the 30s and 40s. Not so much now, but I will take the Golden Gophers.
The Golden Gophers of Minnesota have had 33 consensus All-Americans. Well played, sir.
All right, so for strike 2, I'm going to go way out in left field here. I'm going to say pre-1950, this team was also amazing. I'm going to say the Golden Knights.
Army, well done.
Nice.
They have 37 consensus All-Americans. Good, tied for 14th.
Nice. I'm pretty sure this program's wrong, but I just want to put it out there. I'm going to go with my hometown Iowa Hawkeyes.
Iowa, just short, has had 27 consensus All-Americans.
Well, if they had played Noah Fant maybe a little bit more, they'd be at 28.
Ooh,
I see what you did there. I see what you did.
Nate Stanley not getting an All-American nod this year?
No.
So John Riggins and Gale Sayers aren't enough to put Kansas over the top. I am going to go with Auburn.
Auburn coming in at number 23. They've had exactly 30.
Nice.
Well done. Josh, you are up.
Nice. So this one, people are going to be a little surprised to hear this, but they are, historically speaking, probably the second best program in the Pac-12. They were amazing in the 90s, and they've had other decades of really, really high success levels. It's going to go the Bruins, and I think they're going to be more than people realize. Like, they might be around 50.
They have had 41.
Yeah.
Well done, Josh. You guys are tied at 10 apiece. 3 teams left. You both have 1 strike.
It's kind of an underrated program historically, right? Like, they're kind of an afterthought nowadays, but
Absolutely. They had some really phenomenal teams, not just in the 90s, but also in the 40s and 50s.
yeah.
Coach?
Okay. Yeah. How about I'm completely out of guesses here. How about Oregon?
Ooh, I like
Oregon. Ooh, not a bad guess. But not a great guess either. They've only had 7, which is 1 less than Oregon State somehow.
What? Are you? God Almighty! That's got to be the biggest. That's just got to be the biggest fake out there. Wow! Come on, Oregon.
Yeah, come on, Oregon is right. They are tied with Indiana and Vanderbilt for 60th.
Sure, Vanderbilt's about to pass them, dude. I think they had like 5. Holy Toledo! All right, it's not Toledo either.
All right, Josh.
well, it's my Big Ten ace up the sleeve. It's a program that I don't think gets as much credit nationally. So
I feel like I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, much like Pitt, it's kind of a good team to have in these trivia things. It's going to be
Trivia things?
Sparty.
Is that what we're referring to these as now?
Yep. It's going to be Sparty.
Josh, Sparty is an excellent choice. They have had 31 consensus All-Americans in their history. All right, 2 schools left.
I would wager.
Come on, man. Magic.
I would
Johnson don't count.
wager 15 of them are from the 1950s. That's how good they were in the 50s. Two national titles.
Yeah,
one of the teams of the decade.
That would not surprise me in the least.
No, wouldn't.
Coach.
Would not. I'm like plumb out, man. We got 4 left.
2 left. 2 left.
2 left.
Where did I lose count?
I don't know. Josh is up 11-10.
Oh, these trivia things are hard.
Jeez, they're hard to keep up with. Oh my gosh. Killed me with the Oregon selection. How about Washington?
Washington.
Oh, that was going to be one of my guesses.
Washington, just short. They've had 23. Coach, that is your 3rd strike, Josh, for the win.
Well, wait, I'm already up on him.
You're already up, but you've had 1 less guess than Coach.
But it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You only have 1 strike. So do you have either of the other 2 up your sleeve?
Well, I'll just read off the remainder of my list for that. I had A&M on my list.
A&M has had 28.
Yeah. I had, let's see, I got to do some checking out. So Coach just said Washington, that was on my list. I had the Georgia Tech based on the age of their program.
Georgia Tech has had 21.
It's not bad. I thought potentially Colorado.
Colorado is correct. They've had 31.
Okay. Based on Coach with Army, I was also thinking maybe Navy would be on that list.
Navy's had 24.
I was thinking Wisconsin might be on that list.
Wisconsin is tied with Iowa with 27.
Okay. And then my last one, a little bit of a reach, I thought maybe, but they've had years of like mixed team success, but like bonkers individual performers. And that is the Cardinal.
Stanford is the 23rd correct answer. They've had 37.
Well, I got the last 2 with about 8 guesses. So.
Well done, gentlemen.
Coach, we dominated that one.
You guys absolutely dominated that one. Kudos to both of you. A-pluses all around. All right. Well, now that we've done the pop quiz, gentlemen, you both received your A-pluses for the day. It is time to hand out some hardware. We're going to start by giving conference awards. We'll be giving for every conference an offensive MVP, a defensive MVP, a coach of the year, and a GOAT. So we will start alphabetically with the American Conference. I'll go first. My offensive MVP was Mackenzie Milton, with a shout-out to Darrell Henderson, the tailback from Memphis, as a very close runner-up. Josh, what say you?
Yeah, tricky award for me. I gave it to Mackenzie Milton. It's like 51-49 ahead of Darrell Henderson. Darrell Henderson, he was amazing. 1909 is a high number of rushing yards, but Milton, effectiveness won out for me.
Coach?
Yeah, I think the only person that could have possibly beat out Darrell Henderson is Mackenzie Milton. Mm-hmm. You can't go 25-0 without, somebody like Mackenzie Milton.
Absolutely. Defensive MVP, I took Nate Harvey, who set the single season sack record in the conference as my defensive MVP, even though he played for a god-awful East Carolina team, Josh.
Yeah, it was tough to overlook Mr. Nate Harvey. He was amazing, 14.5 sacks. But I went a little bit in a different direction. I went with Kimoni Fitz at Cincinnati. He was a part of a defense that was incredible. It's why Cincinnati won 10 games this season. And some of the reasons why I went with him from his defensive end position, he got in on 51 tackles, 9 for loss, 4.5 sacks. He was a key cog in that defensive front for good Bearcat defense.
Coach?
I said Nate Harvey. I mean, anytime you can set a single season record in sacks, that's a tough thing to do. He was the lone bright spot for East Carolina, but things are about to change now that Mike Houston is there. So, Purple Pirates, keep your head up.
All right. Coach of the Year, Josh, you just mentioned that Cincinnati defense and then winning 10 games. For that reason, I gave my Coach of the Year to Luke Fickell, even though Josh Heupel in his first year continued Central Florida's unbeaten ways. I was blown out of the water with the success of that Cincinnati Bearcat team, especially the defense.
Yeah, and you know what? I think I would have gone with Fickell as well if it wasn't for the fact that Heupel so outcoached him in their head-to-head matchup. That's why I went with Josh Heupel.
Yeah, that's what did it for me as well, just watching that game with Cincinnati and just the clinic Heupel put on. I don't think Heupel gets enough credit. He didn't get enough credit when he was at Missouri, and certainly not enough when he was at Oklahoma, even for myself. So Josh Heupel, it's not an easy thing to come in and keep your streak alive if you're a rookie head coach, and you like that alive. That's extremely, extremely tough thing to do. He walked into a loaded roster, so that's got to deduct some points. But again, as a rookie head coach, doing what he did, impressive.
Absolutely. My GOAT of the year was UConn, specifically their defense. They gave up 617.4 yards per game on defense. That is more than 80 yards per game worse than the second worst team in the country, which was Oregon State. On top of that, they gave up over 50 points a game. This was a historically bad defense.
Yeah, and that's why when we filled out this chart, this was the first GOAT that I even put in. You mentioned the 50 points per game. Half 100 hung on you is like newsworthy. UConn averaged that for a season. Unbelievable.
Coach?
Well, I was thinking of something clever there. I'm just saying UConn in general. I mean, I think their water boys are even worse in the league. I mean, it was god awful up there. I mean, I don't know that. I don't know. It's just, wow. How can you be that bad? Rutgers is looking at you like, come on, man. So, yeah, UConn.
It's pretty sad there in Stores. All right, let's go to the ACC. My offensive MVP was Travis Etienne, tailback from Clemson. He was the real cog that made the entire Clemson offense work and led them to an undefeated regular season.
Yeah, I mean, 1,463 yards. That's impressive in a good conference like the ACC normally is. I know they're a little down this year, but still Power 5 conference. But for me, the 21 touchdowns, and then the fact that his touchdowns came in such important games. You look at the 3 he had against Syracuse, putting that team on his back. Incredible player. He was my offensive MVP as well.
I couldn't agree more. Just absolute. You take him off of that Clemson team, and they're probably not in the playoffs.
Yeah. My defensive MVP was Clelin Ferrell from Clemson, but honestly, it could have been Christian Wilkins. It should just go to the entire Clemson defensive line.
Yeah, I agree. I think Christian Wilkins is the cog that drives that defensive line. He's just so disruptive and just makes so many plays in the backfield, just blows everything up. He's the one, I think, in my opinion, that sets things up for Ferrell. And usually,
all right, Josh, then break the tie for us.
Yeah, I think Coach has a lot of truth that he's the one that gets the attention and lets Ferrell then be the solo artist, kind of like a great rock band. But what a guitar solo it was. 17.5 tackles for loss, 10.5 sacks. He also had a defended pass. He had a touchdown. He forced 2 fumbles. For me, the eye-popping stat line, 1 out.
Yeah, definitely. My coach of the year, obviously, at this point, we expect Clemson to be this dominant. So when we're looking at their ball coach, we're obviously grading on a curve. So I gave my coach of the year to Dino Babers. This Syracuse team was the surprise of the year, not just in the conference, but possibly in the entire country.
Yeah, I did too. I went with Dino Babers, and kind of the opposite of what happened with Luke Fickell. Dino Babers and that Syracuse team, they kept it so close against Clemson that had about half the talent.
In Death Valley.
Impressive. Yeah, that's an impressive coaching job. I went with Dino Babers.
Yeah, I mean, if you just watch this Syracuse team play, you know they're different. I mean, yeah, are they winning a ton of games? No.
They won 9. They won 9 games. I mean, that's great.
They really did. It didn't feel like they won 9 games.
They went 9-3. They finished the season ranked in the top 15. They're the second best team in the ACC, bar none.
Well, then I didn't realize it felt like after that Notre Dame game they had like 5 losses, but yeah, no, Dino Babers for sure. Just you can tell they're a team that's not just a flash in the pan. They're going to be here for a little while. And they're playing hard. They play great. They play good ball with limited talent. It's only going to get better with Dino Babers. Also, shout out to Pat Narduzzi. Somehow he came out of the top of that mess in the Coastal and won the division. So he's an honorable mention for me.
Well, speaking of the Coastal, the entire Coastal division got my goat because
Goat farm.
That was we have an entire farm of goats growing in the Coastal because
when you give it to more than one person, it's a farm.
we haven't given out a farm of goats in a while. It's been all season, I don't think, since we were farming goats, guys. So, I'm glad to hear that is back in our lexicon. Josh, what about you?
My goat is Virginia Tech, extending their bowl streak. It's a hollow streak. Who cares? You went 6-6. Do you really want to be celebrating making a second-tier bowl game? I mean, give me a break.
Second tier is being generous.
Yeah, they scheduled Marshall at the 11th hour to get to another bowl. They lost 4 games in the middle of their season. One of their 6 wins was William and Mary, an FCS team. And quite honestly, I feel really bad for Cincinnati. This is a 10-win team. Why are they stuck in the Military Bowl by Northrop Grumman? I'd much rather see Cincinnati taking on a fellow 8, 9, 10 win team from another conference. Like if they took on Georgia Southern, that'd be an amazing game.
I would love to see them play. I would love to see them play Memphis.
Oh, that would have been a delight. Even though they're both in the American, it still would have been a delight.
They didn't play in the regular season. That's why.
I know. But give me a break, Virginia Tech, extending that bowl streak to play a 6-6 bowl game. Pathetic.
Coach, your goat.
Well, you already know in the ACC, the Seminoles. Most importantly, the offensive line. Probably one of the worst offensive line units I've ever seen at a school. Especially at a school like Florida State, but I'm talking in general too.
It was garbage. It was absolute.
I legitimately feel bad for DeAndre Francois because he ended up on his back more than he was on his feet this season. And so my goat farm, I signed the deed over to you.
All right. Let's head over to the Big 12 then. Offensive MVP, I don't really think it's even close. It's Kyler Murray.
Ditto. It's got to be Kyler Murray.
Coach.
Yeah. Easy.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Defensive MVP, I did not give one because defense was canceled in the Big 12 this year again.
I mean, there were a few players. Iowa State.
Lies.
Yeah.
Defense there.
So Iowa State had some really good defense in terms of a unit. Individually, they didn't have anyone with like super eye-popping numbers. So I actually went to West Virginia. David Long Jr., their linebacker, really nice season. 71 solo tackles, 94 total, 19 for loss, 7 sacks, defended 4 passes, recovered a fumble, forced 2 other fumbles. Wonderful individual campaign for that young man.
Coach?
I chose Brian Peavy from that Cyclone defense. I kind of singled him out. He's a DB, redshirt senior. He had, I think he was named. I want to say he was named Conference Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, he was. He was. He's a very good D-back, but. When you're playing in the Big 12, that comes with a giant grain of salt. My coach of the year in the Big 12, Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell at Iowa State. He's doing more with less than just about anyone else in the country.
Yeah, I went with Campbell as well. We talked about it way back early in the show when I talked about Temple's coach having flexibility and bringing that to Georgia Tech. Well, Campbell, you see what he does with his quarterbacks. That's a guy that's fearless when it comes to going with the hot hand, looking at game planning for a new quarterback. They played 3 quarterbacks this year. Purdy obviously emerged after the early part of the season, but wonderful, wonderful job by Matt Campbell again.
Yeah, you want to see an ultimate coaching? Look at Iowa State. I mean, that they weren't much when he came in, and he's got him into national relevance now, and he's to the point where he's turning down jobs to stay there. So you got to know that program is starting to build and build and build. So Matt Campbell, phenomenal job this year and beyond.
Mm-hmm. All right. My GOAT is basically the same as my defense. It's my defensive MVP. Defense in the entire conference. It's pathetic.
Yeah, my GOAT was Texas Tech. They pulled the trigger on Coach GQ, and you could say, well, his offense is amazing. He just needs a little bit of defense. He's a young coach. If you want to look at his overall record, fine, okay, you could say pull the trigger. But then they replaced him with Matt Wells, who, okay, he had a nice season at Utah State, but I wouldn't say overall he's blowing me away. If Texas Tech had gotten an amazing coach in there, fine, but it feels like they're making a lateral move.
Coach, who is your GOAT of the year?
I think I took this really quite literally and put Les Miles.
Because he wants to eat the turf?
He eats grass.
I mean, I don't blame him. I think they're going to have to replace the track there, though, at Kansas Stadium with something that is edible.
That's true.
That's true. All right.
Literally the GOAT.
All right. Big Ten, Offensive Player of the Year. I went homer pick Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he led the nation in rushing this year. Despite being the only offensive weapon that the team had, still averaged 7.1 yards per carry. And, Wisconsin had a disappointing 7-5 season, but he was a bright spot amongst the morass that was Badger football.
Yeah, and we could tease you about it being a homer pick, but that would be unfair. JTT had an amazing season. Yes, we had that extra T because it's Jonathan Taylor touchdown. He was amazing, and he's going to get some other hardware. But for me, record-setting season in a conference with a lot of historic records, I went with Mr. Dwayne Haskins.
Coach?
Yeah, I went with Dwayne Haskins as well. Just all the reasons Josh said, and plus he just kind of put that Ohio State team on his back and led them to a Big Ten title. So not to take anything away from Jonathan Taylor touchdown, but Dwayne Haskins, I think, is more of an MVP than JTT this particular season.
And that's fine. We can disagree even when you guys are wrong. My defensive MVP, this was close for me. I went with Devin Bush from Michigan, even though they got slaughtered by Ohio State. For the most of the season, that Michigan defense was outstanding, and the heart and soul of that team was Devin Bush.
Yeah, so look, Devin Bush, phenomenal player. He's playing on defense surrounded by NFL talent. And so I wanted to go a little bit different way. And I had 2 players flip a coin. I couldn't figure out which one I wanted to go with. I ended up going with Blake Gallagher, the really, really talented linebacker at Northwestern. 68 solo tackles, an eye-popping 120 total on the season. He was a tackle machine. The guy I had him edging out was Iowa's Amani Hooker. This is a guy who he's listed as a defensive back. He had 4 interceptions, defended 7 passes. That was nice stuff. But for people that followed Iowa football this year, in the middle of the season, they had a little bit of a hiccup with defensive players in the linebacker position getting hurt. And so for several games this season, they actually dropped Hooker down to play linebacker. That versatility was really, really impressive. Hooker also had a season worth mentioning, and I just did it right now on illegal motion.
Yeah, well, when you said Northwestern linebacker, Josh, I thought you would go with Patty Fisher because he was my runner-up.
I did really, really like Patty Fisher, but I'm a sucker for people that hit the century mark in tackles.
Mm-hmm. Coach?
I think just because of the defense that he played on the Michigan State logo, I'm going with Devin Bush. He had a stellar season outside of that Ohio State game. I think that just kind of gives him an edge. You take him off that Michigan defense, and you're basically a one-man show with Winovich.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Coach of the Year. So some good options here. I went with Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern. They won the West this year, and because of that, even if their overall record wasn't outstanding, he still did enough to earn my Coach of the Year.
Same, and actually it wasn't that hard of a decision. I know the overall record isn't amazing, but they had their starting running back retire due to injuries, had to bring that up on the fly. He had his starting quarterback coming back from an ACL injury in a bowl game last year. They were getting about an 80% Clayton Thorson. Offensive line had some issues. Receiving core had some issues. The defense was incredible. He held it together with some duct tape, even was competitive against Ohio State. Amazing job by Fitz. I did give a little bit of an honorable mention, though. You're going to hate this, Matt. But PJ Fleck, we left Minnesota for dead when they got blown out by Illinois. He rallied that team to make a bowl game. That is kind of an impressive feat based on how the Gophers looked at times.
Yeah, my honorable mention was Jeff Brom at Purdue, obviously. Coach, who was your Coach of the Year?
I mean, Pat Fitzgerald, he put that team together. Somehow, some way, he had them competitive. They would just beat you to a pulp, and then Clayton Thorson would just make a big play here, make a big play there. Nothing overly exciting, but efficient. And I've seen in some recent mock drafts that Clayton Thorson is going to the Patriots. I have him going to the Patriots to be Tom Brady's heir apparent, I guess. I don't know. I saw that in one mock draft where he was getting drafted by the Patriots. So Pat Fitzgerald, definitely Coach of the Year for what he did this entire season with what he had to work with, all the obstacles and hurdles that he had to clear. Jeff Brom, anytime you can beat Ohio State, and I think they just scored on them again. Anytime you can beat Ohio State that badly on national television is good in my book.
All right. Go the State University of New Jersey, a.k.a. Rutgers. That program is – calling it a dumpster fire is an affront to dumpster fires.
I'm stunned you didn't go with Hornibrook, but I went with Rutgers specifically for keeping Chris Ash. His 1-11, 0-9 season brings his overall record to 7-29, 3-24. This is their second 0-9 season in 3 years of his coaching. I don't know where the improvement is to say that you need to bring this guy back. And quite frankly, he is one season away from potentially knocking Rick Venturi off the dubious honor of being the worst coach ever in the Big Ten. Venturi went with Northwestern in the late 70s and 1980. He went 131-1, 026-1. So Chris Ash, not a whole hell of a lot better.
Coach, are you on board for this?
Yeah.
All right. Let's just keep it rolling. Conference USA, offensive MVP Mason Fine, quarterback at North Texas. This is a three-way race. Josh, who have you got?
Yeah, so this was one of the tougher awards to give out. I ended up going with James Morgan, the Florida International quarterback. He had almost the same number of touchdowns as Stockstill and had almost the same amount as Mason Fine. So he was throwing the same amount of touchdowns, but just I felt like what he meant to FIU making a bowl game, winning 8 games. To me, that put him over the edge. This was an FIU team we had pegged as taking a step back this season, but his play was instrumental in them making a second straight bowl game. So I loved Brent Stockstill and Mason Fine, but I went with Mr. Morgan.
Coach?
I'm going with Brent Stockstill. I mean, he's an electrifying quarterback, set all kinds of school records and some conference records and all that stuff. So I got to go with Brent Stockstill there. Finally had a completely healthy year, and I mean, he made I guess he proved a lot of people right as far as what he could do.
All right, defensive MVP, I don't even think it's close. It's Jalen Ferguson, the outstanding defensive end from Louisiana Tech.
Easy. Very easy.
Josh?
Yeah, I mean, he was on a short list to be the player of the year defensively.
Yeah, not just for the conference, but for the entire country.
Yeah.
Coach of the year, UAB's Bill Clark. What a story. He made my short list for Coach of the Year nationally.
Ditto. Yeah, he was my coach of the year, and it honestly wasn't even close to try and come up with an honorable mention. He was that good.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill Clark, he did win National Coach of the Year, so I agree with him. If it's good enough, if he's good enough for them, good enough for me.
All right. My GOAT. Western Kentucky. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. They lost to those Maine Black Bears, Josh. So I don't know how it gets much worse than that.
Well, I've got one team that might get much worse than that. My GOAT of the year was UTEP season ticket holders. The Miners have the dubious distinction of going 0-6 at home this year. Only team in the nation to not win a home game.
Ooh. The season ticket holders don't lose, though. I mean,
they do for investing their money in a completely losing team.
That's true, but maybe the tickets were really cheap. Who knows? But I'm saying, wow, that just opens my eyes a little bit. I'm gonna say WKU. I put WKU parentheses WTF. What is going on?
That is a good question.
Maybe they'll right the ship. Who knows? Tyson Helton, I don't know at this point. Who knows?
Yeah. Questionable coaching hire right there. Although not officially a conference, we still do awards for the independents. My offensive MVP, UMass's Andy Isabella, the nation's leader in catches, receiving yards. He's a one-man offense for the Minutemen.
Yeah, I'll be giving him some love in a little bit, but I went with Ian Book. Notre Dame went undefeated. Him really sparking that offense after a couple weeks did it for me. My honorable mention was Kelvin Hopkins Jr., a really, really talented quarterback for Army, leading that triple option.
Coach?
I agreed with you, Professor. I said Andy Isabella. He put up 200 yards of receiving against Georgia. He was a one-man show. If there isn't, he's perfect for the Patriots. I think he fits that role.
I wonder why. Defensive MVP, Notre Dame, do everything safety, Julian Love.
Yeah, I went with the same. His stats are impressive. You mentioned that he does everything for them. We'll be talking about him with some other accolades as well.
Yeah, Julian loves some defense.
He does. Coach of the Year, 2 great candidates, Brian Kelly and Jeff Monken. I would give it to Monken, but Notre Dame went undefeated, and as much as I love to rag on them, I have to give them props for that. And I have to give old Crimson Face a little respect for what he did this season in South Bend.
Screw that. Jeff Monken won the Commander-in-Chief trophy, something the Army had struggled with for a long time. So Jeff Monken is my guy.
Josh?
Yeah, the undefeated thing is pretty special. So I did pull the trigger and go with Brian Kelly.
That's a shame. But, we had to do it, Josh. We had to do it. Okay. The GOAT, Liberty. Come on, man. I mean, not just for hiring Hugh Freeze, but just for the Freesis, but just the entire university as a whole. They're the GOAT until otherwise dethroned.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I'm going a little bit off the wall. Notre Dame, incredible season, but their special teams, atrocious. They are not a very good team returning the ball. Their special teams efficiency is really bad. And then kicking-wise, Justin Yoon, pretty good kicker normally, missed 4 field goals this year and 2 extra points. Look for that to cost Notre Dame a playoff game. Yeah, unless they're getting blown out, and then special teams doesn't matter.
Coach?
I said UMass because other than Andy Isabella, it was a mess. And I feel like Andy Isabella was standing in the center of the room on a pedestal, and there was just somebody emptied a dumpster around him.
All right.
That is the UMass football program.
All right. Well, we need to keep moving along because we are running very long right now. So I'm going to let's burn through the MAC. Offensive MVP for me, Buffalo's Tyree Jackson, the quarterback who led the Bulls to the MAC title game.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to go with Nathan Rourke, the Ohio quarterback. You want some numbers, gents?
I like numbers.
All right. Passing yards this year, 2,225, 22 touchdowns, 7 picks. Then with his feet, 816 rushing yards, and chip in 13 more touchdowns running the ball.
Not half bad. Not half bad at all, Coach.
I agreed with you, Tyree Jackson.
All right. We will keep it rolling. Defensive MVP, I don't even think it's close. It's got to be Sutton Smith at Northern Illinois.
Yep.
I mean, he's not only the best defensive player in the conference, but one of the best in the country.
Yeah, we'll be talking about him a little later, but just for people that don't know of him, last year he had 30 tackles for loss and 14 sacks. Basically, everyone was double-teaming him and chipping him and doing whatever in the world they could. He still had 24 and a half tackles for loss and 15 sacks. He's an amazing player.
Yeah. Coach, I don't think you're going to disagree with that. I also don't think that anyone can disagree with Lance Leopold for Coach of the Year.
No, unanimous.
Absolutely. The GOAT, everything that's happening in Kalamazoo, Central Michigan is. I'm going to go back to the well. It's another dumpster fire.
Yep, I put in our spreadsheet everything chips. I mean, they went 0-8 in conference. That's dreadful. 1-11 on the season. Hey, they at least won a home game. That was where their one victory was. Just a terrible season. Not even competitive. Even Kent State had some flashes. No such luck for the chips.
Coach?
My knowledge of the MAC is my GOAT.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. All right. Well, let's continue on then to the Mountain West. Offensive MVP for me, Fresno State's Marcus McMaryion, the Oregon State transfer quarterback. He led the Bulldogs to a conference title, and he is the next great quarterback to come out from under Jeff Tedford.
Yeah, I went with him too. It was tough. Brett Rippon also had an incredible season, but McMaryion played better in that title game than just his touchdown to interception ratio, 25 scores to just 3 picks. I had him edging it out.
Coach?
I think Brett Rippon is I think he means more to his offense than Marcus McMaryion. I think you take Brett Rippon out of there, and I think Boise State is completely different. I think Fresno State could sustain that blow a lot better than Boise State could. So I went with Brett Rippon because both of them had phenomenal stat-wise. Both of them were phenomenal stat-wise, so I had to look at some of the other aspects.
Defensive MVP, it's going to be a consensus. It's Jeff Allison out from Fresno State, Josh.
Yeah, the linebacker hit that century mark in tackles. You know, that always intrigues me. But then 5 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, a defended a pass, a do-it-all linebacker.
Mm-hmm. Coach, I know you're on board there.
Mm-hmm.
Coach of the Year, it's got to be Matt Wells. And he parlayed that Coach of the Year into a much higher-paying job out in Lubbock.
Yeah, I've been a little hard on him, talking about how he had a good debut season and kind of didn't really do much and then peaked with this season. But it's a Coach of the Year, not Coach of their career.
or not best coach. It's coach of the year.
Yeah. So I went with Matt Wells for what he did this season at Utah State.
I went with Jeff Tedford for what he did this season. I think he only won the conference, so that's got to count for something.
Can't really push back on that too much. My GOAT, the Utah State administration for hiring Gary Anderson.
Speaking about some weird administration, Bob Davies been announced that he's returning for 2019. This is a guy who had a disciplinary suspension. This is a guy who is 6-18 overall and 2-14 in conference his last 2 seasons.
That's not fantastic numbers.
Well, I'm going to stop off, deliver a GOAT to New Mexico State.
Have they reached goat farm status?
Yes, I think this conference might be on the verge of goat farm status. Then I'm going to turn up and go up to Utah State and deliver some goats to them too for hiring Gary Anderson. Come on, man! And then Bob Davie, he doesn't win, and he makes your program look bad. So why not bring him back? That'd be a great idea.
Great idea. Okay, Pac-12.
What could go wrong?
Pac-12, offensive MVP, Gardner Minshew, the phenomenal quarterback out there for the Pirate in the Palouse.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew's mustache.
Yeah, unanimous. Also unanimous defensive MVP, Ben Burr-Kirven, the linebacker for Washington. He is as good as it gets in college football.
Yep. Well, he'll be getting some more love later on the show.
Yes, he will. Coach of the year, 2-man race. I took Kyle Whittingham, the coach from Utah. I picked him at the beginning of the season. They had some struggles, but they still won the South, made the title game without their starting quarterback and starting running back.
Yeah, just an injury-devastated season, and it's not like all those injuries happened the last week of the season. We're talking about like an ongoing thing from about week 6 on to hold it together, make the title game, even gave Washington a run. It was easy for me despite the Pirate season.
Yeah, I just went ahead and took the Pirate because
he's the Pirate.
He's the Pirate.
He's the Pirate, and we love him.
We love him. He dominates press conferences. He gives great unsolicited advice. And he had his team in the top 10.
Yeah, he did.
Most of the year. So something that he hasn't achieved yet. So
my GOAT was going to go to Lynn Swann, the AD at USC, but he managed to hire Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator. So I had to take that off and go with the perennially awful Pac-12 referees.
Yeah, I mean, that was an easy GOAT for me to give out. We could do a highlight reel, but
I think we call that a lowlight reel.
Yeah. I feel like every game you could pick things. They're considered the worst refs for the Power 5 nationally. Just go and rewatch the Pac-12 title game.
It's bad.
Yeah. I just picked Arizona to be different. I agree wholeheartedly with y'all, but I wanted to make another delivery because it's better for business for our goat farm delivery service. So I took one down.
I don't know how well goats do in the desert in Tucson, though. I don't know if that's their natural habitat.
Well, that's up to Kevin Sumlin to determine now. If he wants to get rid of those goats, he's got some work to do. So, but yeah, Arizona, what the hell?
All right, SEC offensive MVP. I mean, it's Tua. Come on. I mean, I don't know how you could pick anyone else.
Yeah, I said I made 2 separate selections here. My homer pick, obviously Jake Fromm, but obviously it's Tua.
Josh,
I will with Tua.
Yeah, it's really not much of a question there.
Jake Fromm's my honorable mention, but
defensive MVP also not a question. Kentucky's Josh Allen was as disruptive a presence on the defensive line as anyone in the country.
Yep, I went with Allen.
Yeah. I mean, you can't dispute that.
No, absolutely not. Coach of the year. Also, I don't think you can really dispute Mark Stoops. Speaking of Kentucky, they came out of nowhere. I picked him to be the first coach fired in the conference. Little did I know that they would have one of the best seasons in a very long time in Lexington.
Yeah, I went with Stoops as well. I think if you wanted to go any other way, my honorable mentions were Barry Odom at Missouri, winning 8 games, 4-4 in conference, has that offense humming with Drew Lock. And then Dan Mullins was also a guy you could go with over 500.
Cousin Eddie.
At 5-3, 9-3 overall.
Mm-hmm.
But we all went with Stoops, I think, for good reason.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's Stoops, obviously, but some honorable mentions. You have to, Barry Odom for what he did there at Missouri. I think Kirby Smart having one of the youngest teams in the conference, going toe to toe with Alabama. But he also, I'm delivering goats to Athens as well. To give you a little tease there. Also,
let's just deliver the goats while you're here, Coach.
Yeah. Also Derek Mason.
Well.
Yeah. Derek Mason with a 3-peat over Tennessee. I mean, that's got to get some love. Obviously, it's not enough for Coach of the Year, but I'll give him a pat on the back for sure. So, but goats. There was a certain fake punt call that I think that we might be considering. Fake punts. Just don't do them. Just don't do them.
Especially when it's 4th and 11.
For the love of God, just don't do it. When it's 4th and 11, tie ball game at midfield, late in the fourth quarter, don't do them. Just, you know what? Just tear that whole section out of your special teams playbook. Just don't even think. If you're thinking about it, call me first. I'll tell you no. Okay. And then I just want to make a delivery to Knoxville just because.
Just because.
No particular reason. Just because.
Josh.
Yeah, I went with a certain fake punt as well.
I think that is the only course of action here is to fake punts specifically by the Georgia coaching staff. Okay, finally, Sun Belt offensive MVP. This was a tough one for me. 2-man race. I ended up going with Zach Thomas, the Appalachians from Appalachian State, but I think you can make a pretty good case, Josh, for Justice Hansen.
Yeah, that's where I went. I know Arkansas State had a little bit of a disappointing season, not winning their division, but just think about how even more disappointing that season would have been without his 3,172 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions.
Coach?
I mean, you got to go Justice Hansen. I know the overall record didn't reflect it, but you got to go Justice Hansen.
Yeah, that was more on the defense than the offense. Defensive MVP, I went with Raheem Bingham from Arkansas State. Really outstanding player for them. Josh, how about you?
Yeah, Matt, I'm going to vamp for 1 second. My work laptop that I was using for my notes, because the keyboard's quieter, just ran out of battery. So I'm bringing it up now. Desmond Franklin, that's who I had.
Coach?
Yeah, I'll make it work. I got it going. I got App State. So you just said you're basically.
I went with Raheem Bingham from Arkansas State because I thought that, he was like your guy over there at Iowa, Josh. He just did a little bit of everything for him.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I went with the App State team. They won the conference in large part to their amazing defense. And from that amazing defense, I really liked the play of Mr. Desmond Franklin.
Coach?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I agree with Josh. It's just hard. It's just hard to watch the Sun Belt and not recognize that Desmond Franklin is the best defensive player in that conference.
Oh, okay. Shots fired. My coach of the year, Scott Satterfield. This you could give this to him pretty much every year, but again, not anymore. But for the last few seasons, you've definitely been able to. So, Scott Satterfield, maybe this is a little bit of a lifetime achievement award, but he is as deserving as anyone.
Well, I went a different way, though. I went with Chad Lunsford. You just kind of look at what he's done since becoming the interim coach. He wrapped up 2017 going 2-4. That's not that impressive, but based on how the Eagles were playing, it actually stabilized things. Then he gets the interim tag taken off of him. What did he do this season? 9 wins, 6-2 in conference. I went with Lunsford.
Coach?
Ooh, that's a great choice. He's my honorable mention, but you got to give it to Scott Satterfield.
Yeah, I obviously I agree because that's who I picked. Okay, GOAT. Coach, your GOAT in the MAC was your knowledge of MACtion. My GOAT is my personal knowledge of the Fun Belt, because I was just not in tune with this conference this year.
Fair enough. I went with Louisiana Monroe and Coastal Carolina. I know you got to get some money when you're these smaller schools, but I feel like scheduling 7 road games and just 5 home games, that's a bridge too far, I think. There's easier ways to raise money.
Coach?
Ooh. I don't really, when I think about this conference overall, I'm not really delivering any goats here.
Okay.
No real complaints. I thought this was a solid conference. The only goat I thought about giving was to Arkansas State's defense for kind of faltering down the stretch there, but wasn't really bad enough for me to dole out a goat.
All right. Well, that is our conference awards, guys. Let's burn through our awards for individual players for the entire country. We will start with the real Heisman. The fake Heisman was given out this past Saturday to Kyler Murray. The real Heisman comes here at Illegal Motion. I too went with the Oklahoma quarterback as my Heisman Trophy winner. Josh, how about you?
So I'm a little bit of a stickler. I go with what the awards are supposed to say, which is the Heisman is given to outstanding performance, which best exhibits the pursuit of excellence with integrity. Winners epitomize great ability combined with diligence, perseverance, and hard work. And that last part, diligence, perseverance, and hard work, well, I went with Dwayne Haskins because he did not have a particularly good offensive line for stretches of the season. He did not have a very good running attack for stretches of the season, and yet he carried that team on his back, 4,580 yards, 47 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Those numbers are much better than Tua Tagovailoa, and they are even better than Kyler Murray. I know Murray does it with his feet, but arm to arm, give me Dwayne Haskins.
Coach?
Ooh. Well, I'm taking Kyler Murray. I think they got it right.
Coach, I'm 100% on board with you here. Like I said. Now, there's also the Maxwell and Walter Camp Awards. Josh, do you want to differentiate those for us?
Yes, the Maxwell is supposed to go to the best all-round football player. And as a result, I gave mine to Tua. He is a much better thrower than Kyler Murray, but he's also really, really good with his feet. That's why I thought he was the best all-round player.
I mean, I think Kyler is the best all-around player because of what he does with his feet. He's better than Tua with his feet.
But Tua's much, much better with his arm.
Okay. The efficiency stats favor Kyler. He set the record for best passer rating in a season this year. So
look at those deep ball numbers though. Tua is the only quarterback I've ever seen. This is what gives him the edge because you said it earlier in the show. We're not official yet, so I can base it on stats like this. When he launches a deep ball, he immediately, as soon as it leaves his hand, he celebrates because he knows it's a touchdown.
Well, yeah, but it's not that hard when you're throwing to Judge Judy and the rest of that receiving core. I mean,
the court has spoken. It's a touchdown.
Okay. Walter Camp, Josh. How does the Walter Camp differentiate itself from the Heisman and the Maxwell?
So the Walter Camp is just Player of the Year. So as far as I'm concerned, this is supposed to be the guy who played the best, and you don't have to worry about overcoming adversity or being all round. Well, who played the best? Kyler Murray.
Yeah, Kyler Murray played the best. I mean, he's getting all these awards from me. So,
yeah, he really did. He was phenomenal all year long. So yeah.
Yeah. Davey O'Brien, best quarterback. I'm sticking with Kyler Murray here, guys. He's getting the first 4 from me.
I went with Haskins. His arm is just something special. He can throw the deep ball almost as good as Tua. He is super accurate on some of those underneath stuff. He's great at reading defenses, seeing what they're giving him, calling the hot route. To me, Haskins is just the most pure quarterback of this group.
All right, Coach.
I've been going back and forth. I had Haskins. I had Murray. I had Haskins again.
So you're going. So what you're saying is you're going with Artur Sitkowski from Rutgers.
Of course. I mean, duh. Best quarterback ever. Come on, man. No, Kyler Murray. I think he is. I think at the quarterback position, there's a razor's edge between him and Tua. I think Tua, it's really, if you get down to splitting hairs, with what Tua can do and shown throughout the season and displayed throughout the season, he can do a lot of things that Kyler Murray can't. But as far as pure quarterback moxie, you got to give the edge to Kyler Murray. I love Haskins on the deep ball. I love Haskins' ability to read coverage, but Kyler Murray's just as good at that, and he operated Lincoln Riley's offense just as good as someone named Baker Mayfield. So
I think you can make an argument he operated it better than Baker. I mean, his efficiency stats were better than Baker's were last year.
True. Baker probably took more chances than Kyler, but that's probably where the stats are different. Nonetheless, they are better. So give me Kyler Murray.
All right. Doak Walker, tailback. Is there anyone else besides Jonathan Taylor that you guys want to make an argument for?
No. And I'll say why it's unanimous is JTT had incredible stats, but he was one of the few headlining running backs to stay healthy. A lot of attrition this season. Just look at Bryce Love, for example.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Coach, I know you're not going to differ from us on this one.
No. As much as I love DeAndre Swift, I think Jonathan Taylor, tailback, is the best in the country.
Yeah, if you went with DeAndre Swift, I mean, I'd accuse you of not just being a homer, but like having the most, red colored glasses I'd ever seen.
They do look good on me.
Wide receiver of the year. A lot of good options here. I went with Hollywood Brown from that potent Oklahoma offense.
I did too. He's just the complete package, the next level speed, great hands, incredible route running. I know he wasn't the leader in yards or touchdowns, but it's the best receiver. It can be a little subjective. It's not a stat-based award. Subjectively, Marquise Brown.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Judge Judy won the actual award, but on this podcast, I get to choose my category. So I'm going with Hollywood Brown. I've never seen somebody that just continually runs as if you've ever listened to a Titans game on the radio.
So no one.
I heard Dave McGinnis, former NFL coach of like 30 plus years. I heard him speak one time, and he refers to crossing routes as transcontinental routes. I really like that. So Hollywood is probably the best transcontinental route runner. He has great awareness of great field awareness, spatial awareness, and then the ability to turn it on when he catches it. I've never seen anybody run that under screen so many times and rack up miles off of it. So got to go with Hollywood.
Yeah. All right. Mackey Award, best tight end. I went with Jay Sternberger from Texas A&M, led the country for tight ends in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns.
I went with Iowa because it's tough to split hairs. So
if I could go with a tight end team, I'd go with Iowa. Yeah. They have probably numbers 2 and 3 for me in Fant and Hawkinson. But if you have to choose just one, I'm picking Sternberger.
So T.J. Hawkinson, he won the real award, and I think part of that has to do with the fact that He is a little bit better blocker than Noah Fant, and blocking still matters to the tight end position. But we've talked about it before, the coaching staff did not do Noah Fant justice this year. They did not use his talent to the best of their ability. Vast stretches of him on the sideline for no apparent reason. Multiple plays where quarterback just didn't even look his way. And it's a shame because Noah Fant is amazing, and I think will go on to have a very productive NFL career. And he's going to be a little bit like George Kittle, where you're wondering, how the hell did this guy not do more in college? Well, look at the staff.
Yeah, I agree with you, Josh. Completely underutilized, first-round talent. Just he's going to show it on Sundays, and Iowa fans are going to be even more irate that they didn't win more games and utilize this guy more.
I got to be honest. If I was offensive coordinator, Fant's fast enough to play in the slot. I would take one of my receivers off the field, put the big target in the slot, and keep Hawkinson in and have double tight end, baby.
I don't know why they didn't do that more. Okay,
Brian Ferentz,
offensive lineman of the year. There's not really an official award for that. Outland covers offensive lineman. It also covers defensive lineman. Here we split it up at Illegal Motion
because we love the big.
We love the hog mollies, and we also all love Jonah Williams from Alabama.
Yep. Yes,
unanimous.
That's pretty unanimous.
Yep. Defensive lineman of the year, I went with Josh Allen from Kentucky. Talked about him earlier as my SEC defensive player of the year. Josh, who'd you take?
Well, I get to do something a little sneaky, and you will also see it on my All-America team. But Kentucky insists on listing Josh Allen as a linebacker. So I went ahead and did the same thing, and this allows me to give Sutton Smith the award.
Okay. Sutton Smith, excellent choice.
At Northern Illinois.
Oh. I agree with Josh.
Allen.
I agree with Professor in saying Josh Allen he's defensive lineman of the year.
Yeah. All right. The Nagurski Award, Josh, you want to give us the definition for that one for those who are not familiar?
That's just best overall defensive player. Don't worry about position. Don't worry about if they are this new hybrid thing like Josh Allen. Just who goes out and hits the most people. And for me, that was Josh Allen.
I think that's for everyone. That's Josh Allen. The Butkus Award, best linebacker, another unanimous one for us. Ben Burr-Kirven from Washington. I talked about him, defensive player of the year. I mean, he's everything for that team.
He took over that Apple Cup.
Yep. And so you wonder, well, why did we go with BBK and not Josh Allen if Allen's listed as a linebacker? It's because Kirven is the more traditional linebacker. He is a little bit more of a two-way player, defended more passes, had 2 interceptions, had 3 fumble recoveries, forced 4 fumbles, but then 165 tackles. Yeah, Josh Allen, amazing pass rushing specialist. That's hugely important in the sport. Don't mean to take anything away from him, but in terms of best overall linebacker or best overall defensive lineman, things like that, for me it was a little harder to slot Josh Allen because he's this newfangled Swiss Army knife position.
Mm-hmm. Coach?
Yeah,
absolutely. BBK. Thorpe Award, best defensive back. We've got another unanimous one, guys. Georgia's lockdown corner, DeAndre Baker.
And he won the actual one, too, so it's not much of a stretch.
Yeah, well, we don't really need to go from there. The Grosso Award for the best kicker. This was actually a fantastic race, guys. A lot of really quality candidates here. I ended up going with Matt Gay from Utah because that guy is automatic and has range for days, but you can make a great case, Josh, for Syracuse's Andre Smith.
Yeah, and you have to have a truly special season to be looked at as a dome kicker, and that's what Andre Smith had. A truly special season. flawless on extra points, and Syracuse scored a lot of them. So 57 of 57 on those extra points, and then just a booming leg. And what I find really interesting is he connected on 28 of 32 of his field goals. He had just one attempt from inside 19 yards, and he had just a smattering from 20 to 29. They were trotting him out there for some long ones, and he was connecting them early and often on his freshman season.
Yeah. Coach?
Well, I picked the Bayou Bengal for mine. He was one of 4 AP All-Americans, joining the likes of, I don't know, some guy named Grant Delpit and Devin White.
Yeah, he's okay. They're okay.
Yeah.
Greedy Williams.
Yeah, he's okay. And then Cole Tracy, second-team All-America. So when you talk about LSU All-Americans, Cole Tracy's in the discussion. He was a runner-up in the Lou Grozo Award. Didn't win it, but he's a runner-up. He accepted an invitation to play in the Senior Bowl, so he's going to be playing on Sundays pretty easily. Pretty automatic there. So give me.
All right. Punting, the Ray Guy Award for best punter. I went with the only player to average better than 50 yards per punt. That was Texas A&M's Brandon Mann. He averaged 51.1 yards per punt this year.
Yeah, he was a good pick. I actually went a little bit off the wall. I went with James Smith. He's the punter at Cincinnati. He did really well in net as he lofted the ball well for his kick coverage team. But he also had a really good number 21 that ended up inside the 20 and 0 touchbacks. That's pretty impressive. And we've talked about how good Cincinnati's defense was this year. Well, some of that was James Smith giving that defense a long field to work with.
Mm-hmm. Coach?
I'm agreeing with you, Braden Mann, Texas A&M. Completely flip fields for the Aggies.
All right. The Broyles Award for the best assistant coach, I gave it to Mississippi State's defensive coordinator, Bob Shoop. Statistically, Mississippi State had the best defense in the country in a extraordinarily tough SEC West.
Yeah, and then for me, part of that also went into the fact that just how awful Mississippi State's offense looked at times this year. That defense was really the reason why Mississippi State won all those games.
Coach?
You guys have me convinced. I had Tracy Claeys just because I really, really enjoyed watching State play defense. But in that last game, thinking about it, kind of ruined it for me. So Bob Shoop, nothing short of impressive over at Mississippi State. So you got to give him some love as well. And anytime, the actual winner was Mike Loxley, you got to give him some love too for what he did with that offense. And you got to give some love to
Brian Ferentz.
Ryan Day for stepping in the absence of Urban Meyer and winning, going undefeated and then doing what he does. So you got to give a shout out to him. I know I don't usually like to prop up Ohio State like that, but
no one does.
Exactly. But you got to give credit where credit's due.
All right. Finally, Coach of the Year. I went with the aforementioned Dino Babers at Syracuse, getting that team to 9-3, ending up in the top 15 of the country. That is just the job he has done at Syracuse over the past few seasons is nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah, this one was tough for me. Dino was an honorable mention for me. Bill Clark had talked about him at UAB, awesome season. Stoops with Kentucky. And even Chris Peterson somehow winning the Pac-12 with a team that on offense was dog crap for a lot of the year. That was pretty impressive. But to edge it out, I went with Josh Heupel, undefeated, stepping in for Scott Frost. Not a beat missed. If anything, adding some more wrinkles to that offense. Incredible coaching job.
Coach?
Yeah, I got to go with Josh Heupel. I mean, rookie head coach stepping in, keeping the streak alive. Very, 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 very impressive there. Also, of course, you got to look at some of the playoff guys for National Coach of the Year. You got to look at Lincoln Riley, and I didn't give it in his own conference section, but I mean, you got to give some love to Brian Kelly. It is impressive that he went undefeated. Dabo Sweeney, year in and year out, continues to just feed that beast. Nick Saban continues to feed that beast just when you think he's down and out. Also, Kyle Whittingham deserves a shout. Mike Leach deserves a shout. Tom Herman for getting Texas after a dumpster fire of a loss against Maryland, getting them into a New Year's Six bowl and a conference runner-up. And then last and certainly definitely not least, Matt Canada for the job he did at Maryland when everything was such a mess there. They made changes into training camp, and he managed to have a salvageable season where everyone would have been understanding of him if he went 1-11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And he did such a good job that they decided to not retain him.
I know, right?
Oh, well. Okay. Finally, it is time for the all illegal motion team. My quarterback, surprise, surprise, Kyler Murray.
I went with Haskins. I just think he's got the little bit better arm than the other two.
I went with Kyler Murray.
All right. My tailbacks were Jonathan Taylor and Darrell Henderson. How about you, Josh?
I had those exact same. Just they're complete backs. They're big enough, strong enough for the power running game. They're fast enough, elusive enough for the edge rushing game. Both of them are going to be making a lot of money in the next level.
Yeah. Coach, how about you?
Well, I had to go Homer for one of my picks because he's such a game changer. DeAndre Swift and, of course, Jonathan Taylor tailback.
Of course. All right. Wide receivers, we got three of them. Hollywood Brown, I would hope that he is a unanimous selection on the first team, considering that he won the Biletnikoff. My other two, Andy Isabella and Hawaii's John Ursua, who was quietly an absolute force for the Rainbow Warriors.
Yeah, I have Andy Isabella as well. He was amazing. We've talked about him. John Osura, we've mentioned him a few times throughout the course of the season. But I did something really weird. You may have noticed I gave Marquise Brown my complete wide receiver award, right?
Yes.
But the All-American this is who you'd want to have on your team, or at least that's how I constructed mine. I looked at things like that. I wanted to throw some love to Iowa State's mega receiver. This dude, Hakeem Butler, 6'6", 225. This guy's a beast, great hands, and was instrumental in Iowa State's season. So Marquise Brown, a weird situation of, yes, I think he's the best wide receiver. No, I didn't put him on my All-America team.
Oh.
Isn't that bizarre?
How bizarre.
How bizarre. I did put Hollywood Brown in there. I did put Andy Isabella in. And my wild card was Judge Judy. I think, he just seeing him make plays all over the place. He can make every catch. He won the actual Biletnikoff. He's made jump ball catches, catches on corner routes. He's made from all different angles and from two different arms. It just continues to break games wide open for Alabama. So why not, right?
I mean, I have issues. Why not? But we don't need to get into them now. My tight end, obviously, Jay Sternberger. He won the Mackey for me. So, Josh, are you going with the Iowa stable?
I went with Iowa again, and it's the same as the Mackey. I feel like the coaching staff, if they had properly used Noah Fant, would have been a no-brainer. But T.J. Hawkinson is a really, really special player as well. So I put Iowa.
I put Noah Fant because he's just an absolute weapon. I know stat wise he wasn't the best, but I think he just based on talent and future, I'm going with Noah Fant here.
All right. My offensive line, I went with our offensive lineman of the year, Jonah Williams. And along with him, I took Dalton Risner, the guard from Kansas State, center Tyler Biotish from Wisconsin, Garrett Bradbury from North Carolina State, and Micah Hyatt from Clemson to fill out my line. Josh, how about you?
So I've got a lot of those same names. I have Jonah Williams as well. I've got Ben Powers, the really good Oklahoma Big Ugly up there. I have Garrett Bradbury as well, instrumental in keeping Finley clean for the Wolf Pack. I also have Dalton Risner from Kansas State. And then the last one went with a different Wisconsin player. And Matt, I got to be honest, I'm going to have to get some help with his last name. Bo Benschwal?
Benschall.
Yeah, I know it's kind of an up and down season for that Wisconsin front, but the guy that you had and the guy that I have did shine in an erratic season, and they had to have had decent years since JTT led football and rushing.
All right, Coach.
Well, I had three offensive linemen from the SEC championship, the three best ones from the entire conference. Aforementioned Jonah Williams, no brainer there. I had Ross Pierce Baker from Bama.
Pearson Baca.
Pierce Baker. He's their center, so he kind of orchestrated all of it.
Josh, actually from the state of Iowa.
Yep. Sweet. And then I had Andrew Thomas as well. I think he played the left tackle spot as good as you could have played it, kept Jake Fromm clean pretty much all year when he was healthy. So it's good enough for me. Then my other two, of course, Dalton Risner and Garrett Bradbury. Garrett Bradbury, I think, was the actual
he won the Remington.
He won the Remington for best center, yeah.
Yeah. So you got to go with those five. I think you're in great shape.
I think you're in pretty good shape if you can get those five guys on your line. All-purpose player, I don't think it's close. It's the superstar freshman, Rondale Moore from Purdue.
Agreed.
Coach?
And ditto.
All right, let's get through these defenses, guys. And we will start along the defensive line. We have it set up so that we can take either 3 or 4 defensive linemen. I took 4. One of them, though, is just Clemson's defensive line. If you want to take one person, I'll take Farrell, but you can take Wilkins and be just as happy with it. Josh Allen for the other spot for me. Then Alabama's Quinnen Williams at the defensive tackle position, and Mississippi State's Montez Sweat. I talked about Bob Shoop winning the Broyles, and Sweat was the linchpin to that entire defense.
Yeah, I had Farrell. I had him as my ACC Defensive Player of the Year. You mentioned Williams, so I got him. I got Sutton Smith. And then I'm the only one who hasn't had a homer pick yet. Matt, you had it for JTT as the Big Ten Player of the Year. Coach, you had it with Jake Fromm, I believe, in the SEC.
That one was not a serious homer pick.
Your real homer pick was Andrew Thomas.
So my homer pick, again, a little bit underutilized, and so he might not have had the numbers, but when he was out there, AJ Epinesa is one of the best defensive linemen I have ever seen. And he is incredible, and if he was at any other freaking program, he would have played about 65 to 75% of the team snaps, unlike at Iowa, where he was actually not a starter until later in the year, and they wanted to have this weird, 15-man rotation. Idiotic.
You're not bitter at all, are you, John?
Play your freaking 5-star athletes.
Yeah, because you don't get a lot of them at Iowa. All right, who's on your defensive line there, Coach?
Well, Christian Wilkins, I can't have a defensive line without him. I can't have a defensive lineman or defensive line without Josh Allen. I can't have an interior presence without Quinnen Williams of Alabama. And I can't have another edge threat without talking about Montez Sweat. I'm running a 4-3 here. So
yeah, all right. Linebackers. I'm taking Michigan's Devin Bush, Washington's Ben Burr-Kirven, and LSU's Devin White.
Nice. I've got Ben Burke-Irvin as well. Because Kentucky insists that he has a linebacker, I have Josh Allen slotted as a linebacker. And then, again, I was, bad team defensively overall, but they had a ton of injuries. They even had some stuff at the beginning of the year where a player or two was kicked off the team. So stats-wise, West Virginia, not very impressive, but I just loved the season David Long Jr. had.
Okay. Coach.
I got Devin White from LSU, just a game changer there in the middle. Tevin Coney from the undefeated Irish as a linebacker there. And BBK.
Yeah, BBK, of course. Okay, well, then finally, defensive backs. My two corners, DeAndre Baker and Greedy Williams. I don't really think you can make an argument for many other people around the country.
No, and actually looking at our spreadsheet, we're in agreement for our entire defensive backfield.
Yeah, so let's just give it. DeAndre Baker, Greedy Williams, Julian Love at Notre Dame, and Grant Delpit from LSU.
The only one I would give an honorable mention there, first guy off the bench, if any one of them get hurt, is Brian Peavy possibly from Iowa State.
Well, then in that case, I'd probably go Amani Hooker from Iowa.
And yeah, I wouldn't be offended by any of those picks. All right. Specialist kicker. I went with my Lou Groza Award winner, Matt Gay.
I went with my Groza winner and the real Groza winner. Again, to win this award playing in a dome, you have to do something special, and that's what Andre Smith did.
Coach?
Cole Tracy.
All right. Punter, Brandon Mann. Josh, we know you're going to go with James Smith because you gave him the guy. Coach will go with Brandon Mann because he gave him the guy. Kick returner.
All right, here's the thing. I'm going to let you two make your arguments for these two, and I'm going to pick based on your arguments, so go.
Okay. Well, then, my argument, I went with Utah State's Savon Scarver. Now, he led the country this year in kick return average at 34.2 yards per return. He finished with a total of 719 total return yards. That was good for sixth in the country. To go on top of that, he also had 2 kick return touchdowns. Josh, come at me, bro.
Well, mine gets a little bit of added difficulty points because he had a dreadful team in front of him. And so I went with New Mexico State's Jason Huntley. He had a nation-leading 3 touchdowns, had 598 yards. That's a 26.0 average because he only returned 23 kicks. But again, he played for a 3-9 New Mexico State team that was offensively dreadful. I think Huntley gets the added bonus of not a lot around him.
Okay, but that because their defense was also so bad, he got more opportunities than
all of one. 22-23.
Well, it's one. All right, Coach, who are you taking?
All right, give me Scarver's touchdown total.
He had 2.
Give me Huntley. Huntley had 3.
3.
Okay. Well, then, you guys are both allowed to be wrong. Totally fine. Finally, punt returner. I went with Georgia's Mecole Hardman, and I know Coach is going to back me up on that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Mecole is just...
He's an electrifying athlete.
He's special. He averaged better than 20 yards per punt return. He was just absolutely outstanding.
Had it not been for some blocks in the back, that average has been way up there.
Mine is honestly just one so I can read my favorite stat line from the season.
Hit it.
It's Oklahoma linebacker Curtis Bolton. He had 2 attempts. 9 yards. Both were touchdowns.
I mean, that's one way to do it.
I think those might have been blocks, you guys, and not real returns.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe they're technically returns, but
let's just say they're returns just for
short ones.
just for the sake of.
By the way, according to NCAA.com, both Curtis Bolton and Boston College's Tracy Levy, who is also who is actually a running back, they both technically have 0 punt returns for 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I just wanted to be able to read my favorite stat.
Yeah. Honorable mention, Greg Dortch.
Yeah.
Who probably would have been my runner-up for all-around player right after Rondale Moore. Okay, guys, this has been an epically long podcast, so we need to finally wrap it up. So I'm not even giving you guys a chance for an and finally tonight.
Too bad. I'm going to do one.
Oh!
We did not talk about the Celebration Bowl. It'll be the historically Black College and University national title game. North Carolina A&T takes on Alcorn State. The Aggies, this will be their second straight appearance. They have a deadly defense. They have to go up against an Alcorn State Beaver team that has a nasty running attack, including not 1 but 2 1,000-yard backs. However, the Aggies are a more developed program. They're going for their 3rd HBCU title in 4 years. I think they get it.
All right. Coach, any final words then from you?
Josh took the words right out of my mouth.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us then here on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. So on behalf of our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton in the Music City, and our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook, up there in the Windy City, this is the professor in Nashville saying so long and see you next time on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast.
Yay.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Thanks for listening to the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. To get in touch with the show, email us at illegalmotionpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at illegal_motion.